What city is amazing to visit but horrible to stay in? Dubrovnik. The city where 90% of homes turn to Airbnbs. As a Croatian, it's like a fake city that exists only for tourists. My last visit was before the whole got thing, and even then it felt like no one lived there. Can't imagine it now. Went there a couple of years ago and it was quite cool until 3 cruise ships arrived and puked 15k people into the inner city. Took me 2 hours just to get out of there again. I think only 300 people live there full time. Places that have terrible weather most of the year. I love visiting family in Houston during the winter. I have no desire to live there the other 9 months. Commuting to work in Houston ruins the other 3 months too. I like the implication that the commute takes 3 months. Accurate. We went to the Houston Zoo in July. Most of the animals looked like, kill me now. I like my city, but I do tell people they have to get used to the weather. The only thing I hate is the drivers. They're either in the goddamn way or raging. PSA, for anyone visiting, get the fuck out of the left lane in the highway. 65 doesn't exist here. I have been going to Houston every month for the past few years. It sucks balls. And they are sweaty. Everyone is sweaty all the time. Someone tells you, oh no, come on November, it'll be lovely. You won't sweat. They are lying. You will sweat. Just less than in other months. Honestly, a sprawling shithole, but they have so many great restaurants. Yeah, but I live in Houston and feel the opposite of OP's question. It's a great place to live, but terrible to visit. There's nothing to do here. This is exactly how I feel. I've lived here for 20 years and can't imagine living anywhere else. But I'll list 2 to 3 other cities to visit in Texas before Houston. Agreed. Weather sucks and it's sprawled and not all that visually pleasing. But here's super cool pockets all over. Cost of living, food, museums are great, etc. I used to live in Houston. I would tell people to never come visit. Not much to do other than eat amazing food. A lot of the East Asian countries are beautiful and culturally rich, which is great for tourism, but have grueling work-life balances. So like Tokyo, Japan, or Seoul, Korea. Those are the most prominent examples. I'm also answering from the perspective of a Westerner. I did an internship in Seoul and my native coworkers didn't seem any more unhappy than what I experienced stateside, but I was miserable. I consider myself a hard worker, but that word has a different meaning over there. I was in Tokyo last year, out at a bar, and a South Korean guy started chatting with me because I'm clearly American and he spent a few years in the States for high school. He told me he was fucking exhausted from how hard he has to work in Tokyo. It was some generic sales job he was at, but the pressure was stressing him out in a major way, so he smokes and parties on his off days to blow off some steam. Cool dude, but pretty eye-opening conversation on how tough it is to get by in Tokyo. Yeah. My friend, we're both Americans, was shipped out by his company to Osaka to work for 2 years and he hated at the end. Everyone was given 30 minutes for lunch and he would be the only one to take the 30 minutes sometimes when his superiors weren't pressuring him to finish something. All of his Japanese peers scarfed their food down in 10 minutes and went right back to work. How are those people even functional? How are we? I think is their question. One of my best friends is Korean and works in Japan. We met in uni in the UK. Her stories of Japanese and Korean work culture are insane. Pay is relatively low, the expectations are crazy. And the things coworkers have openly said to her, why don't you have a boyfriend, why haven't you had plastic surgery, are wild. Korean living in Seoul here. I'm not even sure what tourists are supposed to do in this city despite spending my whole life in here. Shop, eat, visit the historical bits in a hanbok and pretend they're in a drama. Oh, and a certain subgroup enjoys camping outside certain entertainment companies, I believe. I went for 4/5 days in 2023 and loved it. Korean food is amazing. If you're a foreigner into makeup or skincare, Korea is incredible. Korean beauty is such high quality at a good price point. I'm not even really into K-pop or drama, but it is popular, so if people are into that they often really want to visit Korea. We spent time visiting the palaces and temples, museums, heading to markets and eating everything, going around cafes and bars in Hongdae, doing a tour to the DMZ. It was really good. China isn't great either. Amazing stuff to see, but they've really bought into the toxic corporate culture/grind set mentality. New Orleans. This is the answer. I loved it in my mid-20s. Now in my mid-30s I would never want to live there again. I love going back to visit, but I've become too accustomed to having running water and electricity to move back permanently. You're saying New Orleans doesn't have electricity or running water? No, but water and power outages are common, and boiled water advisories are more frequent than anywhere else I've ever lived. That's part of living below sea level on the ass end of the Mississippi River. The Mississippi is a polluted mess in Minnesota, where it starts. I can't imagine what it's like after coursing through another half-dozen states and picking up all the pollutants along the way. No, it's not. It used to be back when the Twin Cities dumped their sewage into the river, but the Mississippi is relatively clean now. There are still issues with nutrient pollution in some agricultural areas, but it's not really bad at all. And the solution to pollution is dilution. The Mississippi picks up a ton of water as it goes south. The Mississippi picks up a ton of water as it goes south. But what water does it pick up? There's a ton of large-scale agriculture all along most of its tributaries. No? Yes, but we still do have quality wetlands along the way that help filter those nutrients out and contribute to denitrification. I'm an ecologist who did my graduate work on the upper Mississippi. I now work for the Army Corps of Engineers. Most of this is repeated slander of our rivers from parents and grandparents from a time when they were polluted. I have zero issues swimming in the upper Mississippi or really any of its tributaries. Nor do I have a problem swimming in the Missouri or the Ohio. Exactly. Not sure about other rivers, but I live by the Wabash River, which then feeds into the Ohio, then Mississippi, and it's nasty and polluted. Can't imagine other tributaries are much different. We have electricity and running water, but random blackouts are pretty common. We regularly, as in monthly, have boil water advisories or service interruptions for large parts of the city that can last for a day or more. And that's not including hurricane-related incidents. I love this city and living here, but the most accurate nickname we have for it is northernmost city in the Caribbean. Bourbon Street looks like a ton of fun in pics and video, but the reality is that it perpetually smells like urine, vomit, and cheap booze. The crowd is a mix of exuberant, hostile, and straight-up criminals. That being said, NOLA has a lot to offer once you get away from all that noise. The music, food, and art scenes are pretty great. It's a hotspot for history and architecture as well. But again, if you go to Bourbon Street, leave your valuables and dignity at home. If I were a fan of jazz and wanted a nice relatively chill bar to get some gumbo and hear some classic New Orleans jazz, where would you direct me to? Snug Harbor on Frenchman Street in the Marigny is the most likely location for you to find all of those things at the same time. Got to hear Ellis Marsalis play there, it was awesome. Plop yourself in the middle of NOLA on a Friday or Saturday night. Follow your ears for music and your nose for food. You'll have a good time, but be wary of thieves and people who are speaking in cursive. I enjoyed everywhere I went in New Orleans except Bout Bond Street. Absolutely. Lived there for 4 years and I'm never moving back. I like visiting family there so I can be a tourist again though. Key West. Any other beach/tourism only place as well. Cities designed for tourism suck for the people who actually live there full time. Even in cities with commerce, if there's a major tourism side, odds are the infrastructure wasn't designed for the people who live there. It's so true. Newport, Rhode Island is like that. The city just painted over a mural that was in a park. The local kids had worked on it all summer and they were devastated. The city said it was a mistake. I don't believe them because they have done this exact thing many times with any type of public art scene as an eyesore for tourists who want to be transported to 1641 when the Puritans would stone you for using a color. Venice. One of the best travel decisions I ever made was getting a hotel on Lido for the Venice portion of my family's trip. It was less than 20 minutes by boat to get from Lido to Venice. Lido was much more residential and it was nice and quiet in the evenings and way less touristy. If you stay in the Jewish ghetto area, it's way less touristy as well. We could walk around and not see anyone for a while. The restaurants we went to were full of locals too. Italy and California, right? The Italian one for sure, but I have not yet been to the Californian one. Venice. Los Angeles is actually really nice as long as you're not super close to the boardwalk. Then it gets sketchy. Number 1 for me has to be Kathmandu. Totally unique, teeming with amazing history. Beautiful and vibrant. Stay there for more than a week and you'll get claustrophobia, cough up soot, be normalized to the idea of throwing trash everywhere, and want to be anywhere but there. Don't tell Bob Seger. Florida. I know it's a state, but I stand by my answer. Source: Florida resident, Miami. Supposedly, though I do not enjoy visiting it either. My parents live there. They hate it. Miami is a transient city for several reasons. It's a sunny place for shady people, and if you don't speak Spanish well, buena suerte. Rude people, a large amount of urban poverty and crime once you get away from the tourist areas, which don't really offer anything better than other coastal cities in Florida. Lived in Doral for 3 years. Never again. Me. My favorite part of Miami is the airport. Half the time it means I'm leaving. I've been all over the world. When I visited Miami, almost everyone I interacted with was beyond rude. It was so weird. I had never experienced anything like it. I will never visit again. It is pretty though. I agree with this. I'm a 30-something white lady and have never been treated like such shit by other women. All the men were too nice in a gross/creepy way. No thank you. Sydney, horribly expensive. If you don't have 2 to 3 mil for a house, you'll be commuting for hours every day from a suburb with no trees and black roofs. Not really a city, but Sedona, Arizona. I love to visit Sedona, but every time I think, who the hell thought it was a good idea to put a city where a national park should be? I live 40 minutes north of Sedona. I love to jet down there early on weekdays to hike, but I'd never want to live there. Traffic is awful. There's not much of a scene or any character in the town itself. Food is lackluster. Absolutely breathtaking hiking though. Unrelated, but a lot of the trailheads are in neighborhoods, and it's so bizarre to me that a lot of them don't have sidewalks. Well, 'cause they don't want the common people just parking and walking around their neighborhood. I had an amazing time in San Francisco, but I don't know how people survive out there. This is coming from someone who lives in New York City. At least we have Brooklyn and Queens for affordable options. Not just housing, but overall. While over there, I feel like you're either rich or you're poor. It didn't feel like there was an in-between. It's so expensive. In line with your comment. I've always said SF is a great city to be rich in, and a great city to be poor in. But it's a shitty city to be middle class in. If you're a household earning $150,000 per year, you'll be miserable in SF. You make enough to have friends elsewhere who have houses and special weekend cars. But you're renting, and you'll never stop renting. Public transit is okay, without ever being great. Which isn't a big deal except that the city arranges itself so that you must take either public transit or Uber or Lyft/cabs everywhere all the time. I absolutely love the city, but it's an abusive relationship. As someone who's from SF Bay Area, most of us don't live in SF, but cities like San Jose, Fremont, Redwood City, etc. Same as you mentioned Brooklyn and Queens for NYC. I love living out here, but yeah, it's an absolute grind. Rent prices especially have ballooned in the last 4 to 5 months. It's impossible for me to consider leaving my apartment next year. Property ownership seems laughable. Has been that way here for decades at this point. Asheville, North Carolina. Beautiful place to visit. Tons to do as a tourist. The whole city is basically designed around tourism. Really tough place to live. Absolutely horrible schools. Bad traffic. Limited medical options. Skyrocketing cost of living with extremely low salaries. Limited career options other than working in the incredibly low-paying tourism industry. The state overall has the worst protections for workers in the country. People move there because it's beautiful and seems great on a visit. But it's a really tough place to live for the average person. If you move there, you better have a remote job that pays you a ton of money. Yes, and if you come visit, do us all a favor and stay in a hotel, not an Airbnb. The Airbnb industry has made it practically impossible for working-class people to buy a home here. It seems like one of those cities where you have to be already rich or from money to live there. I don't know what people would do for work in a cute place like that with limited jobs. ITT, all of them. Apparently. Turns out living kind of sucks for 90% of people. I have about 3 days maximum tolerance to Las Vegas before I lose my will to live. But after a few months away, for whatever reason you're drawn back to wanting to go there. Nashville. Thought it would be great. And no, not a wannabe country singer or anything. Married with elementary age kids. I've never met such miserable people as in Nashville and the surrounding areas. Just angry at everything. I went to college there, that wasn't bad, and gave it a try living there for a year out of school. Love the non-country music scene there. But the people just were not for me. It was so refreshing to move to a Chicago, instantly made friends, and was so much happier. So nothing has changed, I see. Honolulu/HI in general. The cost of living is very high. But there aren't enough high-paying jobs to compensate, in contrast to somewhere like the Bay Area. Not to mention island fever, hard not to feel trapped when you can drive around the island in just 4 hours. The trick is to drive a red Ferrari 308. Lived in Hawaii for years. Downtown Honolulu is a dump and Waikiki is way too crowded for me, but my lifestyle on Oahu and Kailua was unbelievably good. Lived in Kona on the Big Island for a while and that was even better. It's definitely not for everyone, but living there was one of my favorite places to call home. Really? I often daydream about that. A lot of people do, until they spend their first month there. Santorini. Everything seemed to change for the worse around 2018, for some reason. Austin became wildly expensive, and the free events were harder and harder to find. COVID killed many of my favorite bars/hangout spots. The homeless used to just be easygoing hippie stoners who wanted to hang out and listen to music. Now they get borderline violent if you don't toss them some money. The crime rate in Savannah has become unbearable for no good reason. Enough that I have zero desire to really go back. New Orleans has actually gotten safer, but the cost of housing is sky high. Traffic and the poor roads will destroy your car regardless of how well you drive. Hong Kong, amazing food and culture. Dogs hit housing. Shenzhen has vastly cheaper and newer housing. Just a 20-minute train ride away from Hong Kong. There's nothing interesting for tourists, just another boring city. But it has everything you need to live comfortably. Charleston, South Carolina. Las Vegas. I used to live in Henderson back in the 90s and early 2000s. Moved away in '06 to the south. People hate on the suburbs, but the Henderson subs were amazing compared to where I live now. Henderson has sidewalks and a kid could easily and safely walk to school, to their friend's house, or to the park without ever touching the street unless it was to cross the road. They planned out the suburban grid so well and I miss it so much. There are no sidewalks where I live. You have to walk directly on the street. What the fuck were these people thinking not building sidewalks? And street lights are pretty much non-existent. I don't live in some old-ass bumfuck rural place either. I live in one of the most suburby areas around. Don't underestimate how important freaking sidewalks are. I enjoy visiting Memphis. There are a decent number of events, good food, and I have friends there. I'm usually either going to park my vehicle in a valet garage or at my corporate office if I have to leave it somewhere. I have zero interest in living there. It is like number 20 on the most dangerous cities on Earth list. I've been to many of the cities on this list. Memphis is the only one where I've been robbed. Memphis is also weird because the bad areas and good areas aren't as distinct as in some cities. You walk through a nice neighborhood, go around a corner, suddenly cars on blocks and plywood over the windows. Washington is so beautiful. Especially in the summer, looks like paradise on earth. But it is 8-month investment to see 4 months of greatness. It doesn't rain. It just drizzle every day. Because of that, people all dress like they are going on impromptu hikes. Plus the huge tech scene. Community can be quite hard to build. A lot of people report the Seattle freeze. Before moving there I thought seasonal affective disorder, SAD, is just something people make up. Oh no. No. I needed a lamp. The housing cost has also made it pretty challenging for folks not in tech industry to truly enjoy things. It's not the drizzle, it's the darkness that's rough. But it's still better than most places in the US. Anchorage. Alaska is a beautiful to visit but tough to live in. The long months of darkness are the most obvious challenge, but being near the water also makes it very gray and dreary. In Fairbanks, it's much colder, but at least you get the sunshine. Most of Florida. Lots of tourism, but not many jobs in anything else. In my experience, London is great to visit and stay in but horrible to live. So long as you have a salary of £80,000 plus, slightly lower if you have a great rent or mortgage deal, and live within zones 2 to 5, it's a really nice place to stay. I've been here 6 years now and wouldn't want to live anywhere else. Krakow, Poland, Miami, Tokyo, Sapa in Vietnam. The scenery is absolutely breathtaking, but it was heartbreaking seeing children between 3 to 6 years old sleeping on the street or carrying babies on their backs selling items to tourists. Dubai. Feels like visiting the future until you realize it's 120th and everything costs your soul. As a European, really any American city except for maybe New York. Impossible to walk anywhere. You're stuck in a car for most of the waking hours you're not at work. It can be nice to visit, but North America is one of the last places I'd choose to live, except for Mexico. Philly and Boston are also super walkable. New York, it's like $500 a night for a holiday in under the train. I would say NYC is the opposite. Insufferable to visit if you don't know your way around public transportation, lots of walking that most people aren't used to, touristy spots are overcrowded, very expensive for hotels and food, etc. But it's a fantastic place to live, if you can afford it. More people live here than anywhere else in the United States. It's obviously livable. I disagree, living in NYC is pretty amazing. Just expensive or crowded. New York is the only place in the US where you can get a glimpse of what life without a car is like. The prices are the worst part, otherwise it's a great city to stay in. Came to say this. I live just outside NYC and often travel there for the day to enjoy a restaurant or a show. It's great. Staying overnight? Almost never. The hotels are ridiculously expensive. It's really noisy and it's honestly not worth the hassle when I live so close. NYC is pretty great to visit for a variety of reasons. I know people that absolutely love living there. However, I'm not sure I'd enjoy the tiny homes, or the smell of urine through many of the streets. Savannah, Georgia. Just tourists and students. And crime. Pretty much anywhere in Florida. I loved visiting Panama City, but I could never live there. Clearwater was cute, but it was also a little sad. The heat is unbearable, but frankly, the people there are just kind of mean. I dunno. I'm curious what you mean by Clearwater being a little sad. I used to live nearby, and the only thing that comes to mind when I think sad regarding the place is the large stretches of prime downtown streets that are literal ghost towns since Scientologists bought up the area for its high urban real estate values. Besides that, the prices aren't too bad to be next to some of the best beaches in the world. As someone who lives there now, Nashville. Fun to visit and see all the museums, like the CMHOF, the Musicians Hall of Fame, the Johnny Cash Museum, etc. Having hot chicken, especially at somewhere besides Hattie B's, is great. But living there is a different story. Terrible traffic all the time due to a lack of public transit and our metropolitan area encompassing not just Davidson County, but also the surrounding 13 counties. It's very spread out. Constant revving of engines all throughout the day and night. Weather is fucking terrible except for like 1 month of the year. Little for locals to do outside of drink. Very enclosed music business that's extremely difficult to get involved in if you don't know someone already in it. I've enjoyed my time here, but fuck, this city has exhausted me. Can you tell me more about the weather? I feel like Nashville would have mild winters and summers wouldn't be too bad compared to like Florida. New Orleans. I'm from there, but moved away a long time ago. Love to visit, but be ready to go after a week or two. Honolulu. I'm a resident, and even tourists realize it's not what they think when they visit. I could be wrong, but Austin feels like it was created by Instagram. I bet a statistically significant number of Fire Festival tickets were sold there. Istanbul. You are a king as a tourist, slave as a native. Austin, Texas. Bangkok is a great place to visit, but a tough place to live. Spending a year there will make you really miss clear sidewalks. Boston. Even when you get outside of the city, it's not affordable. But it's a great city with a lot of history and culture among other things. I mean, I'll give you affordability, but Boston is one of the most livable cities in the country. That's why you have to move to Boston's largest suburb, Charleston, SC. It depends what affordable means. Do you want roommates? If you aren't making 100K plus, then you will probably have roommates. Well, you don't have to live in the city itself. Extensive commuter rail network. Paris. I'm somewhat surprised by this. As a Londoner, I really enjoy going to Paris and seem to have a lot of cultural similarities with Parisian metropolitan life. I personally really love living in London, so I'm curious what about the living part of Paris isn't super appealing? Depends on the neighborhood/arrondissement tbh. I know plenty of people who've lived there for portions of their lives, and everyone loved it. I guess it depends on your frame of reference. If you're in Europe and you want to live in a big city, Berlin, Paris and London are all great options. Chernobyl. 50,000 used to live here. Now it's a ghost town. Thanks Captain Macmillan. Not sure if I'd consider it amazing, but Orlando. Boring urban sprawl isn't amazing. Not the whole city, but the neighborhood of Sultanahmet in Istanbul is great to visit. Horrible to stay in. Las Vegas. Anywhere in northern Yemen. Beautiful, but not sustainable. Could you elaborate on why? The economy here is based on mining, which are good jobs, but not enough to employ everyone. There are not many places to work. Mexico City. Kathmandu is pretty rough. Charleston, SC. Waco, Texas. Seattle. Positano. Expensive as all hell and not much to do, but nice for a day trip. Anywhere that has a lot of snow. Madrid. Holy crap, those people are insomniacs. Stay outside of town and make Madrid a day trip. Los Angeles. Lived there for a few years. Amazing amount of stuff to do. But living there was just too much for me. Everything takes forever and is crowded and expensive. Panama City Beach, Florida. It's a great place to enjoy emerald green waters and sugar white beaches. But unless you own a bar, a restaurant, or are just shitty rich, there's nothing for you there. I knew so many people that vacationed there when they were young, and as soon as they could they moved there. All there is overpriced apartments and shitty jobs like waiting tables or cleaning hotel rooms. There are very few doctors that are worth a shit too. As a Milwaukeean, I love to visit Chicago, but I could never live there. The traffic is just too much. Honolulu. Wonderful place to visit, if you have money, but living there sucks. There is traffic, it's crowded. You have to go to work and pass loads of people who are on vacation. Housing is expensive as the housing stock is used by foreign investors to move assets around. Unless you are established or have a really in-demand skill, you probably won't ever own a house there. It's also so isolated. If you are a local, you have the same 3 to 5 spots that you always can go to. If you have an ex, you probably can't go out without seeing him or her. Cape Cod. Born, raised and stuck here for another 15 years. COVID was the final nail in the coffin. All the super rich who could work remotely from their Cape house never left. The cost of literally everything has skyrocketed and the traffic will never go back to normal. BC. A lot of people work here but can't afford to live here, so trying to go over either bridge is a nightmare. Crime and drugs are just as bad if not worse than other places, but everyone thinks Cape Cod is such a perfect place. Worked on the Cape for 15 years, traveled from New Bedford. I will never do that drive again and that traffic. NYC, the city that never sleeps. I feel like LA might fit. I loved visiting, but I know how expensive it is to live there, with Hollywood and such. The thing often said about LA is usually the opposite, that it's a terrible place to visit and that gives a bad impression to live there. But when you live there you realize it's a great place to live. The city isn't conducive to sightseeing. And because traffic is bad, so when you visit you only have time to do 2 things on your itinerary per day, so your week's day feels uneventful, rather than 10 things in a walkable city like SF. And the things you choose to see are probably the wrong choice that exposes you to bad areas. Walk of Fame, tour buses, Universal Studios, Venice Boardwalk. It's the opposite. LA is best lived in. Very difficult to visit because it's so massive that you can't get a sense of it in just a visit. Las Vegas. Disagree on this one, but curious as to why you say that. Los Angeles. Born and raised and I hate it here. Seattle. I visited 2019 summer and moved here in 2020. Not worth it. Summers are the best, but the rest 9 months suck. Fucking depressing. Whenever I talk to anyone that says they want to move there, I ask them if they've been in the winter. They reply with, "Everyone asks me that. It's mandatory." San Francisco. Too many homeless and car break-ins. Sideshows shutting down entire streets or the Bay Bridge. Shoplifting and theft is rampant. Homeless shitting on the streets. Cost of living is ridiculous. No street parking. Weather and food is 10 out of 10 though. NYC, Miami, Orlando. Lots of things for tourists to do, tons of great restaurants. But traffic is a bear and getting places can be a real chore. Also it's inland, so the summers are hot and humid with little to no breeze. It's like living in hell, but the humidity is higher. Bishkek, Honolulu. It's pretty nasty. Bruges. But then, like a flash, it came to me, and I realized, fuck man, maybe that's what hell is, the entire rest of eternity spent in fucking Bruges. And I really hoped I wouldn't die. I really hoped I wouldn't die. Hong Kong. Highly distinctive city with an incredibly lively nightlife and plentiful street food options. Living there sucks, though, an increasingly oppressive political environment in combination with what is probably the least affordable housing market in the developed world. Most mountain towns. High COL. Small year-round population, limited and high-priced stores. Gonna have to nominate Cape Town. For tourism? Yeah. It's absolutely stunning. Beautiful views, good beaches. Food, all kinds of things for tourists to enjoy, but outside of that bubble much of the population live in shitty neighborhoods, caught up in gang warfare, and even the wealthier, more sheltered folks aren't totally safe. Venice is stunning to visit for a few days, but the crowds and high costs can make it tough for a longer stay. Venice, Dubrovnik. Pretty much every city where mass tourism drives the locals out. If you want real tourism hell, then you should try to stay in Hallstatt, Austria, a small town completely overrun by mass tourism for the sake of doing a selfie on a day tour. Cape Town. The city is great. September 8th, 10. Except there's always traffic congestion, insane rent cost in the city. The places where it's affordable that aren't priced out by tourists and Arabs are far from the city and work. At worst, crime-riddled and ignored by government. I moved to Cape Town for work and I don't want to leave. That being said, I've had female colleagues who've visited for work prior to me and didn't feel comfortable being alone in the city. The rental market is insane though. If I were to move here for good, I'd probably move to Blauberg or Durbanville/Tigerville side. Hungary, Budapest, Los Angeles, Ocean City, New Jersey. Source: I grew up there. Admittedly, it's amazing to visit, is also a stretch, but it is a popular tourist destination for Philly folks. Anywhere on Cape Cod. Athens, Montreal, one of the best city for food, music festivals. Mixed cultures. Horrible to live there. Massive traffic and unaffordable rent. Ibiza. Paris, not Texas. Dubai. San Francisco. I mean, unless getting your car broken into is something you enjoy. NYC. Singapore. My aunt tries to justify living in Florida. She claims that the 3 weeks of perfect weather are why people move there, yet nobody goes out in the summer because the heat and humidity are stifling, and then everyone down there is afraid of the cold. So, Queens, New York, anywhere near the subway, kept me up half the night. NYC. Easily. Kansas City isn't too great to live in. I mean, I wouldn't say Kansas City was an amazing place to visit either. New York City. Varanasi, India. New York City. Seattle. Seattle. I'm surprised I've not seen London mentioned yet. Why is London terrible to stay in?